Tonight's screening is co-sponsored by Concordia's Faculty of Fine Arts and the Fine Arts Student Alliance, so we'd like to thank both those organizations for co-sponsoring the Montreal premiere of CAMERAPERSON. Kirsten Johnson is an award-winning documentary filmmaker and cinematographer. She has lensed some of the most important political documentaries over her 25-plus year career, including Pray the Devil Back to Hell, and 2 films by Laura Poitras, The Oath and Citizen 4, which I'm guessing some of you have seen, especially the latter film. CAMERAPERSON, which won the Sheffield DocFest Grand Jury Award last year and has recently won some Cinema Eye Awards and many, many other awards, is Johnson's fascinating and inimitable collage film of some of her most memorable and moving moments as a camera person over many years of filming. And we are very, very excited and pleased to be sharing with you the Montreal premiere of this beautiful, incredible, amazing film. And we are also very happy that Kirsten will be joining us after for a Q&A via Skype.
I tried to make a film in Afghanistan over the course of 3 years, and I was basically finished with it, and I showed it to the young woman who is the protagonist of it, and she said, "I am now too afraid to be in this movie." And I was so blindsided by it. I was so sort of shocked that I hadn't seen it coming, that it made me think about a lot of the promises I'd made in the past to other subjects. And the effort to rebuild that film is how we came up with this film. You know, what's interesting about these processes is as we rethink doing them, we have new insights into all of it. But basically, you know, I was never sure this film could be a film, as some of you may feel from watching it in certain ways. It was a big series of questions for me that were just going round and round in my head, and I was seeking ways to address them. And you know, some of the biggest were, what did I owe people? What did I owe the people I had filmed? And to a great extent, I was really in a sort of a mea culpa mindset you know, I go in and out of as a person and as a filmmaker. But along the way, also, I became deeply interested in how memory works. And so I wanted to look back at footage that I'd shot to understand what I had lived through. And then, of course, I would discover things I had completely forgotten and insights that I didn't know that I had. But part of the great work was the collaboration with the editor, Nell Spangerter, who really helped me find my way from a place of really being too hard on myself to a place of being a little more gentle with myself. Well, I mean, one of the things that I say very strongly is that you are always intervening when you are present with the camera. It is an intervention to be there with the camera. And the question is whether you stay in your position as a person who films and refrain from speaking, engaging once you've started to film, whether you turn your camera off, whether you, you know, engage in an act that is often an act you don't know really the consequences of. So I do think of it as a spectrum, and I think of it as a thing, you know, we all wish to be decent, but as we know as people, it's an incredibly complicated thing to be decent, given how ignorant we are really of other people's realities. So, you know, a lot of times I would say what you don't see in films that I have shot is that I do talk to people as I'm preparing to film them or making sure it's okay to film them, or in sort of spaces in between things. So, you know, in that abortion clinic, that young woman was really feeling very alone and really beating herself up. And it was first the director, Don Porter, who said, you know, you're not a bad person. You can't call yourself a bad person. And we were sort of so upset by the way she was beating herself up that, you know, we felt compelled to say, yeah, we've all had unplanned pregnancies too. But I think saying something like that is incredibly risky on a certain level, because it can be understood or misunderstood as a way of saying, I think I understand you completely. And that can be incredibly presumptuous, and you can really turn a person off by saying something like that. So I always think of it as this incredibly delicate thing, whether to speak or to not speak, and to figure out how I can communicate simply by my physical presence, honestly. Basically, it wasn't that I had all of this footage and went back through the thousands of hours of it. It was that all of the footage, with the exception of things I shot myself, like my family footage, belonged to the directors I had shot it for. And it was a question of me really thinking over and over and over. I'm wanting to see those scenes again. So I wanted to see Nigeria again. I wanted to see the James Byrd footage again. And what was kind of fascinating that happened, not unlike, I would say, sort of taking apart, like if you think of the way in which we must compartmentalize things over time, and that I've got all these different boxes that I've stored all of these different experiences in, I would sort of unpack one and cope with it, and then suddenly I would remember another one. So I was honestly, until the very 11th and a half hour, like in late December, when we knew we were going to Sundance in January, I was still having like, oh my God, I just remembered something. I'd want to see the footage, and I'd be reaching out to the director and trying to find the footage. So it's this very crazy process of layers, sort of accumulated layers of remembering things. So it wasn't like I had some overall vision and I said, I want to look at all of this footage, or I want every single one of these things. It was sort of, I dealt with things one at a time. And honestly, I was dealing with the footage, I would say, until now. Like, I continue to deal with it. And it's not yet done for me. But there were real surprises to me in the way that I had forgotten certain things, and then they would sort of bubble up again. I would say yes, I do think of myself very differently, because I think I've lived through several very important historic waves in terms of documentary filmmaking. I would say most importantly, I started as a documentary filmmaker before the internet existed. So when very few people had the chance to be filmed and thought much about what filming meant in the world, as compared to now, where virtually everywhere we go in the world, people think about what being filmed might mean to them and have all kinds of expectations for it. So that's the first critical wave, I would say. And then I lived through a period where people were doing a lot of personal documentary filmmaking that really fell out of fashion, and we moved into this wave of impact filmmaking. And I also lived through the historical moment of the shift of 9/11 and what it meant to our lives around the world. And I was sort of really fascinated by post-colonialism and African history. Was very much into Brazil and the African diaspora. And then 9/11 happened, and it really changed the jobs I was asked to do. So I ended up filming a lot more with the US military and filming a lot more in the Middle East. So I sort of have these very strong historical marking moments for me in my filmmaking life, but I always thought about human rights and how that's a part of documentary filming, and at a certain moment, I believe I felt like films really had this sort of activist potential that then I saw become strained in this marketplace where funders look to fund films before they even know what they are. So for many years, people would call me and say, oh, we want the independent truth of hunger in America. We want the independent truth of Darfur. We want the, inconvenient truth, not the independent truth, the inconvenient truth. And I started to really question how that functioned, how it sort of impact filmmaking, what it was doing to us as filmmakers and what it was doing to the quality of films. And I think everybody right now is thinking very strong and hard about how documentaries are structured and how they reveal their own perspective or don't. So I think, I feel like I'm in the zeitgeist once again, not so ahead of any curves. Yes, there are many things that I regret having filmed, but I also think you must make mistakes. That is how, that's how the filmmaking happens, and that you admit to your mistakes and that you apologize to people, or you talk about things, or you accept when you went too far. I think this is the only thing that we can do, and in some ways, that challenge of just being humble about how many mistakes we must make, I think, is interesting as filmmakers, and we need to be a little kind to ourselves in how many mistakes we must make to do the work. Phrase that I'm pretty sure belongs to Robert Bresson is basically make that thing that sort of without you would never exist. So clearly, like, no other person but me could have made CAMERAPERSON. I feel this for each individual. There are certain films that only you can make, so struggle to make that film that only you can make. And that doesn't mean that it's a personal film, but that you are the one who will help us see something in a way that we could never imagine we would see it. What is true for me, what I found in the footage that I found so interesting, was there was evidence of me being a woman at different moments in my life, sort of when I was able to do different things or obsessed with different things. So certainly there's a period of time when I'm really interested in older people, I'm really interested in babies, I'm really interested in young people, I'm really interested in hot people, and I go through these phases that are unique to my experience of being a woman. I try to mentor and support lots of different filmmakers, and certainly filmmakers who I feel like have been underrepresented in the world. And as we know, there's all these crazy statistics out there. And one of the things that I find fascinating is to ask the, people who are rare in whatever field is sort of how do they exist? What does it take for them to have existed? And there's a number of factors about why I exist and why I have the career that I've had and why I have children now and all of these different questions. And if you ask any filmmaker in a certain way, they would come up with this list of things. One of the things I find really shocking and interesting is that for all the young people I teach, all young women ask me, how do you have a family and do this job? No young men ask me this question. I now ask all of my students, how are you going to be a parent in this? Because it has conflicts around parenting with this work. But that's not on young men's minds in their early 20s, even though it's on many young women's minds who don't have any intention of being a parent anytime soon. They start to worry about it, I would say, a decade to 2 decades before men do. And that really, in many ways, changes their capacity to just focus and do work. Because I think nobody knows how to do this work. We all learn how to do it. And there are assumptions made about whether we're able to do it or not, both by people outside of us and by ourselves. And sort of the big question is, how do you cope with that? And certainly to be a filmmaker or to be a cinematographer, I think you have to deal with uncertainty and anxiety and not knowing and a lot of mistake making and a lot of just sort of questions at all times, like the young woman was saying about, just questioning yourself about, do you film in sacred spaces or not? I think it's a life of questioning. And so whoever you are, if you can be comfortable with that, then it's an incredible world to be a part of. I'm really trying to sort of share with you as much as possible what it is like to be a camera person and not to misrepresent what the work is. And, you know, frankly, it's my job to not make that much noise. It's my job to not film myself, not to put myself on the screen. So, we had to look really hard for the footage where I sneezed and really hard for the footage where I'm talking on camera. I usually have turned the camera off when I'm talking. And there wasn't very much of me. I mean, percentage-wise, that one shot of me in the film is probably a higher percentage of me than exists in all of the footage that I've shot. So we were searching for all these ways for the film to really echo as much as possible what the kind of footage that I have shot is. So there's very little of me in it. And we had a moment in Uganda with the dancer, with the face dancer, where I'm in it, face dancing with him. And it just was like, oh God, it was too early. I was not complex enough as a protagonist for you to accept me in that moment. In a lot of ways, once you saw me, you sort of threw me back out of the movie. Felix is back. Felix is back! Come on, Fizz. Oh yeah, he's seeing your waves now. Thanks, everybody. So I shot a great deal of Fahrenheit 9/11 with Michael, and then I subsequently shot several of his other films, and he's a dear friend and been very supportive of CAMERAPERSON, and it was really interesting the first time. I mean, basically he said I could use whatever footage I had shot for him that I wanted. He saw the film for the first time in Sheffield, England, when he hadn't seen it before. And he was really struck by the way all of this traumatic material accumulates inside of all of us. We were just given this rabbit.
That's great. That's awesome.
They like the rabbit, people.
It's perfect.
So this is a question, I, like everything in this film, is very deliberately constructed, and we very deliberately left it open-ended to speak really actively to this idea of the many places in the world where, there's not enough resources and people don't have what they need, and tragic, unnecessary things happen. And I really wanted to talk really specifically about the idea of maternity wards as war zones. A lot of my career early on, I was really, I felt insecure about if I didn't film in war zones, I wasn't really a camera person, and that I needed to see violence and record violence and sort of be in dangerous situations. And little by little, I happened to end up spending a lot of time in maternity wards, and I realized, these are these places where young people die unnecessarily, and people sort of battle heroically to save lives and don't succeed. And recognize the war zone, and I'd like to change that. That is, you see there, a casualty of a war, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, no, I really wish I could have been there with you. I would have loved to have showed you my fabulous Senegalese learned French. Mais malheureusement, je suis ici à New York. But yeah, I just think we're in such a powerful historical moment in time, as we always are. And how do we contend with that as artists, as audiences, and as people making choices? I think we're all challenged in this moment, and I just want to say that, when I made CAMERAPERSON, I honestly didn't know if it would reach anyone, and I just tried to stay true to my own very deep internal questions, and I'm so grateful to all of you that it matters to you.
We're very grateful too.